Hi, and welcome to my sci-fi, fantasy, and horror short fiction roundup for September 2021. And the full text version of this roundup is available on my book blog, Maria's Reading. So I have picked quite a few stories for this roundup, and if you want to read some more recent short fiction picks by me, you can check out my latest quarterly short fiction treasures column at Strange Horizons. And let's dive in. My first story pick for this month's roundup is What Remains to Wake by Jordan Taylor in the Deadlands, issue number 5. Now, if you read that short fiction treasures column at Strange Horizons, you'll know that it was all about speculative fiction that twists and turns fairy tales and folk tales into something new. And you'll also understand why I absolutely adore this evocative, strange, and chilling tale that is deeply rooted in the world of fairy tales. Taylor's story is told from a place beyond death, and our point of view person is a dead, or, well, almost dead, princess. Once upon a time when she was born, a wise woman saw the terrible fate that awaited her, and as such things go in fairy tales, the wise woman knew the fate could not be avoided entirely, but she tried to change the way it would play out. But the result was not exactly a happily ever after. Instead, the result was a princess buried in the woods, becoming part of the forest itself. I would read a quote from the story. Spiders' webs stitch shut her lips. Dirt weights her eyelids. Her hair has long turned to mold and leaves. The forest shifts around her, cycling through the seasons. She thaws. She freezes. She sleeps. Her roots tangle with those of the trees. This is such a dark and yet luminous magical tale, and it's another outstanding piece of fiction from the Deadlands. My next story pick, actually, this is going to be 3 story picks from Uncanny Magazine number 42. The first one is If the Martians Have Magic by P. Jelly Clark from Uncanny Magazine. Now, Martian invasion stories is a classic subject for science fiction. Here, Clark uses it to spin a tale that blends political intrigue, spiritual and magical connections, and the complexities of alien-human communication into a riveting adventure. We find ourselves in an alternate version of Marrakesh, where Minette, a mambo used to negotiating with the powerful Loa, is trying to find a way to broker a deal that will ensure the life and freedom of a group of Martians left behind on Earth after the Third Martian War. Clark is a master storyteller, creating vivid characters that must navigate a complex world where magic and technology are interwoven. And I love how he draws you into the tale's rich world and also makes you feel that this world extends far beyond the edges of the story itself. My next story pick, also from Uncanny Magazine number 42, is Mulberry and Owl by Aliette de Bodard. This is an outstanding new Zuya story from de Bodard. And you can read more about the universe of Zuya on de Bodard's website, but the short intro is that the Zuya stories are set in a timeline where Asia became dominant and where the space age has Confucian galactic empires of Vietnamese and Chinese inspiration. Scholars administrate planets, and sentient spaceships are part of familial lineages. So that's the world we're in. Mulberry and Owl delves deep into the complex realities of friendship, love, loyalty, and revenge, as well as the often devastating personal costs of rebellion. The story intertwines two storylines, past and present. In the present, Tui goes looking for a dreadful enemy in a remote and dangerous part of space. In the past, we follow Tui before she lost her friend and companion Kim Lan, when they were both part of a group rebelling against the Empire. De Bedard writes a tale where the sense of grief and loss and the desire for vengeance are drawn with delicate precision. And I love how she captures the grand, dizzying scope of history, empire, and space itself in such an intimate story. My third story pick from Uncanny Magazine is The Giants of the Violet Sea by Eugenia Tiantafilo. This is a gripping science fiction / murder mystery set on a distant planet where humans from the Mediterranean once settled after leaving Earth. Themis returns to the community where she grew up, the community where her mother still lives, and where her brother lost his life while swimming with the mysterious sea creatures called Venedolphins. As she tries to uncover the truth about what happened to her brother, she soon realizes that secrets lurk everywhere and that many things and many people are much different than she previously believed. One of the many things I love about this story is how it explores Themis's complicated feelings around family, community, and identity, and the way we can sometimes feel a great need to leave the place where we grew up in order to see ourselves and those around us more clearly. My next story pick is Stones of Saardal by Carl Dandenel in Little Blue Marble. A quiet and resonant short story. This one is written as a presentation about a specific place on Earth. In this case, a building in a small community in southern Sweden, and it's recorded to be included as part of the educational material on board a spaceship that is headed away, far away from our planet. I love the closeness and the wistful vibe of the story and the way it is both sweet and aching. My next story pick is Your Brother's Touchstone by Isabel Lee in Luna Station Quarterly. This is a gripping story about the bond between two siblings and the capricious magic that threatens to tear them apart. Philip, the younger brother, can disappear, seemingly winking out of reality without warning, only to appear again in another location. His sister is aware of his ability, but hasn't told anyone else. After a conversation with her aunt, she realizes that her brother's abilities may be even stranger and more powerful and maybe more dangerous to him than she previously thought. I love how this story keeps the actual mechanics of Philip's ability somewhat enigmatic. And I love how it depicts the love and the secrets that can exist in a family that seems normal on the outside. My next story pick is Black Wings White Keir, I hope I said that right, by Rati Mehrotra at Podcastle, and it's narrated by Suna Dasi. Magic wings and magic food are two major parts of this beautiful story where a mother has to remember and deal with who she used to be and who she might still want to be in order to save her child. Mehrotra's story deftly explores the way motherhood sometimes seems to require that a woman sacrifices parts of herself in order to be a good mother. In the story, as in real life, that sense of needing to make yourself less than you are, safer, less complex, can come from outside or inside, or both. it can be a powerful force and can make it difficult to feel like a whole person, no matter how much you love your family and your children. Malhotra's story combines a sense of love and adventure with a darker streak, and I love that depth. Next up is Eating Opium from a Silver Cereal Box by D.K. Latta in Speculative North, number 5. This is one of the stories in a very good issue of the Canadian zine Speculative North. We follow a man on a long and lonely space mission. He's all by himself, far away from Earth and everyone he loves. The story is split between his time on the ship, experiencing the harsh reality of being alone with nothing but a computer for company, and between his time as he signs up for the job before he fully knows what it entails. This is a sharp and incisive sci-fi story. My next story pick, you might hear the snuffling dog in the background. My next story pick is Every Next Day by Rebecca Burton in Translunar Traveler's Lounge. The whole issue is most certainly worth your time, including this wonderful story of family and identity and transformation by Burton. A mother disappears and the father grieves her passing as life changes for the child. At the end, there's a choice to be made, and I love how this story allows for the agony of that choice and how it explores the difficulty of finding your own way and your own freedom in the web of family bonds. Next up is A Girl Forages for Mushrooms by Ruth Joffre in Flash Fiction Online. After her parents' divorce, a girl splits her time between her parents, spending a lot of time with her father, and she can see how hard his life is and how he's trying to find a new foothold in the world, how he's getting thinner and more unkempt. This is a deeply resonant, lyrical, and ultimately darkly surreal piece about grief and loss that captures a child's view and reactions perfectly. Next up is On the Spectrum by Justin C. Key in Many Worlds. And Many Worlds is a new publication initiated by Cadwell Turnbull. And on Twitter, he called Many Worlds a short fiction project / writing collective and a shared multiverse co-created, co-owned, and co-governed by a collective of authors. Anyway, this story by Justin C. Key is the first one at Many Worlds. And it's set in a society far in the future where a majority of humans are capable of telepathic communication, but not everyone is able to connect with others this way. These people are on the koinos spectrum and can, in some cases, qualify for medical treatment in order to become normal. Becoming part of the majority in this way seems both frightening and alluring to the narrator and his best friend. But what might you lose if you change such a fundamental part of yourself? And how might that affect the world around you? Key's story is thought-provoking, and I am very much looking forward to reading more stories in this interesting new project. My next story pick is A Guide to Snack Foods After the Apocalypse by Rachel K. Jones in Diabolical Plots. This is a harrowing and unsettling story about two children who are trying to survive in a bleak and terrifying post-apocalyptic world, haunted by monsters called the ganglies. The ganglies emerge whenever and wherever, literally from the shadows, to devour the bones of whoever gets in their way. Jones makes ingenious use of the list story structure here, and the list of snack foods the two children sample along the way is charming and occasionally revolting. It's a story that twists and turns and then twists again as the children try to figure out how to survive the assault of the ganglies. My next story pick is Into the Sunset Eternal by Tiffany Maries in Dose of Dread at Dreadstone Press. And this is a sharp, jagged flash fiction tale of blood and sacrifice and finding what you wished for in the most terrifying of places. Definite content warnings for self-harm and suicide, but I really like how the story burrows deep into a place of personal pain and then drops the bottom out from under you as a gleam of cosmic horror peeks through. My next story pick is A Bird in the Window by Kate Francia in Beneath Ceaseless Skies. I'm going to read a quote from the story first. When I sat at prayer, the angels laughed at me from the windows of the chapel. I wandered through my thoughts like trees. Behind every tree an angel waited. They winked at me until I lost the path. Now this is a gorgeously crafted story where a mysterious veiled woman has been brought to an abbey and becomes an object of interest and speculation for the nuns and novices. Marguerite, who has been sent to live in the abbey, who is our narrator, she was sent to the abbey by her family because of her wickedness, and she forges an unexpected connection with the mystery woman, who turns out to be quite different than Marguerite had imagined. Now, Marguerite's wickedness is that she is haunted, as we see in the first quote there, by angels and other visions. She sees angels everywhere, and they are strange and often terrifying presence in her life. And much to her surprise, the angels also cluster around the newcomer, though she does not seem to be able to see them. Francia's tale is both beautiful and moving, and it comes to a brilliant conclusion as the world and the angels seem to close in on both Marguerite and her new friend. My next story pick is Discontinuity by Jared Millett in Apex magazine. This is a mind-bending and dizzying science fiction story where a new way of faster-than-light space travel has been discovered. It's called breaching, and while it works, it also has some strange and frightening side effects. Those who travel space like this risk losing their grip on their memories and reality, and some also suspect that reality itself is affected by the breaching. The story's protagonist, Laura Marai, is piloting a spaceship on a vitally important mission, but her mind is becoming ever more troubled and fragmented as she breaches again and again and again. As the story unfolds and we learn more about where Laura is going and why, we realize that what's at stake here is something much bigger than just Laura's own sanity. It's a sci-fi story with a mysterious and grand vibe that gave me that awesome sense of vertigo I get from the best kind of science fiction. My next story pick is All Us Ghosts by B. Pladek in Strange Horizons. The ghosts in this story are not supernatural creatures, rather they are the people who write and perform roles inside virtual reality worlds created for rich people. Hired by big corporations, the ghosts are often poor, disadvantaged workers eking out a living by creating the right kind of relationships and life experiences for the adolescents of wealthy families, helping shape them the way their families want them to be shaped. Jude, one of the ghosts, has been writing and acting out friendships and romantic relationships for Cam, and their connection has become deeper and more complex than Jude would like to admit. When some of the ghosts get together to pressure the company they work for in order to get better working conditions, Cam and Jude's relationship becomes even more complicated. This is a great story with excellent characters, and the whole thing is deepened by the way it shows how social and economic standing can influence intimate relationships. Next up are a couple of stories from Lamplight, Volume 10, Issue 1. And I will say I do have a story of my own in this issue. So I guess I'm biased, but really it's a great issue. It's guest edited by E. Catherine Tobler. And it's well worth a read, whether you want to read my story or not. But anyway, I've picked two stories. I just think they're great. Anyway, so the first story pick from Lamplight is No Blood of My Heart, No Breath of My Lungs, But Love by Stuart C. Baker. And it has this great opening line. Being dead isn't so bad. That is a great opening line. And what follows is a darkly fascinating story about what happens when an old spirit awakens deep in the bog where her body was once sacrificed by her community and sunk into the peat. Over the years, she has turned into a powerful presence and spirit with a deep love for those she was sacrificed to protect. There is darkness and death in this story, but things do take an unexpected turn as a new sacrifice is being brought to the bog. And my final story pick is from Lamplight, Volume 10, Issue 1, To Escape the Hungry Deep by K.T. Breisky. As always, I'm a sucker for stories about siblings. And here, Breisky tells us a quietly devastating and terrifying tale. Lots of terrifying in this roundup, it seems. A terrifying tale of the bond between two sisters, one alive, one dead. When Cassie returns to the cottage near the lake where her sister drowned many years ago, she brings along her girlfriend and her guilt and all her insecurities about the past and the present. She has come back in an effort to put the past behind her, but deep in the lake, her sister has other plans. Breisky's tale expertly weaves together the fears haunting Cassie both in the murky waters of the lake and on land in the cabin with the woman she loves. And that's all my story picks for September. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll be back in about a month with another roundup. Thanks so much. See you soon.